Hi, my name is MK. I'm the founder of Filipino Home-Based Moms or FH Moms. What we do is we help Filipino mothers inside and outside the Philippines to get an online job, and now we are expanding to helping more Filipino mothers without access to the internet by giving them home-based livelihood opportunities.
Before kasi kami na nag-home-based job, parang living paycheck to paycheck kami. Sahod niya, oy, happy na agad yan yung matitira. Or nung nag-home-based na kami, doon nakapag-ipon na kami. Nakapag-church wedding kami. Tapos nagkaroon na kami ng savings. Nagkaroon na rin kami ng investments, tsaka insurance. Nakapag-bili na rin kami ng house.
Dito kasi sa pag nagtrabaho kami sa bahay, mas maraming time na sa kids, sa kanya. Kaya, ayun. Hanggang ngayon, masaya pa rin ako sa online job.
Since sobrang hirap ko na talaga ng job, na-experience ko sa limitations sa work. Until over time, I was inspirational. And you were one of them. So yun, nabigil na. And then, doon ako nabigil na. Doon na talaga yun. Doon na ako pinasok talaga sa You gave. I remember the experience ko sa company na I got projects, freelance jobs. I am ambassador. So those are some of the things na nalagsan sa companies.
Nag-join ako ng FH Moms last 2017 and that was the first year na nag-transition ako from corporate to working from home. So, nakita ko to sa Facebook as a mommy community for, like freelancers. So, that's why I joined. For me, FH Moms is really like a blessing. The group, this community made me realize my calling as a teacher. It's an honor to be part of this group, to be part that I know, and other mothers out there as part of the world of FH Moms. So, go for it.
In my job, there are many tasks. There are so many things that needs to be done in front of the computer. There's a lot of forms, paperwork, and also a lot of research. At the same time, being an event planner, I'm always on the go. And as a new company, it's also challenging whether should I hire an employee, like a regular employee, or should I just get somebody that's on call. Now, this is where FH Moms came in, like God said. So when I hired one of the wonderful FH Mom members with the name of Katie, I was able to communicate to her what I envisioned my business to be, and she helped me to create a very positive branding of my business. So I would say having FH Moms as a support system for my business has been the best decision that I have ever made.
Hi! Hello? Okay, I'm assuming you can actually see my screen already. Hi, good evening. It's an evening, sorry. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mommy Jackie, and I hope that you are ready to learn a lot tonight. So I'm back. Mommy Jackie I am your customer service trainer, and I hope you were able to watch in case that you were not able to join last Monday's discussion or lesson. I hope that you were able to get back with some of the videos and somehow have a refresher, or if it's something new, then it's something that you have learned from as well. I mean, in terms of the video we had last Monday. So last Monday, we talked about vowel sounds, right? Vowel sounds, or the lessons on the pronunciation of vowel sounds, would be part of our Customer Service 101 class. Particularly, it is part of the lessons that we have on accent training. Okay, so we dissected, as I've said, we've dissected the lessons on pronunciation. mainly for vowel sounds and consonant sounds. So today, our discussion would be about consonant sounds. So this is part of Module 1 about learning more about yourself and dealing with a few things that you need to improve on. So again, it is all about consonant sounds for today. So do let me know if it's your first time to watch any of the videos or this video here in FH Moms. Please make sure that you comment down below. If you have also any questions that you'd like to ask me somewhere along the way, feel free to post it, and maybe later on we'll have a short Q&A where you can give me specific questions that I can help you out with, okay? So anyway, let's move on. So I think I hope you still remember from last Monday, we've discussed what is accent. We said that it is actually composed of three main components, which is intonation, pronunciation, and liaison. So for this series of free webinar, we're tackling just the pronunciation part. Normally, this is one of the things that you need to work on first because you can sound a bit, I would say, slang or have that certain twang. But it's always best, I think, that pronunciation should be clear and clean enough, okay, so that you will be easily understood by other people, okay? Now, so as I've said the last time, the accent that you have as you speak with your clients and your customers would be very important because that's key to communication, right? And as I've said, we have three components. The first one is intonation. They call it American speech music, but the way I see it, intonation is not really something very, I would say, foreign to us. We have learned this back in high school and in grade school. I know some of you find it funny when I gave an example, like when we were kids, we were actually taught to, I would say, we were taught to say, when we greet our teachers, we say, remember, we say, good morning, teachers. And somehow, every time, like the following year, when you're asked to introduce yourselves, right, you somehow end up saying something like, good morning, my name is Jackie. And even in the declamations or maybe recitals, for example, you you have this kind of sing-songy intonation. Now, of course, part of the customer service 101 class is we identify if you have that sing-songy intonation, which is not actually right. Remember that as you speak with customers, in customer service, you need to sound conversational and you have to sound natural. So you can't really have that sing-songy intonation, okay? So, but intonation basic is like putting in a bit of music into how you speak. Now, the next one is, of course, pronunciation. I think pronunciation is not really something foreign for us. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, that is something that we are exposed to as well. We were taught to pronounce words the right way, right? But there are certain differences between how we Filipinos read some English words compared to how foreigners, particularly Americans, UK, and British people, and even Australian people, pronounce some of their words. Now, the thing is, of course, the difference in the pronunciation can be a barrier in terms of, let's say, in the case of our, let's say for Americans, right? There's a difference and they hear it differently when you say comfortable, right? So, but in the Filipino English, that's really how we were trained anyway, right? I mean, when you read a word, we were trained to read every letter in a word, right? Every syllable, every word, no, every, sorry, every word, every syllable, and every letter. In fact, we were trained to think that there must be a reason why this letter actually exists in that word, and therefore you have to mention or you have to say that particular word. In terms of pronunciation as well, we were trained to just put letters together. Like you have a letter K and then the letter A, put the two together, that's a ka. So in fact, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, that was in grade school. We were trained to say it like ba, be, bi, bo, bu. ka, ke, ki, ko, ku. I know some of you would end up laughing at this, but that's the reality, right? The thing is, when we sound that way, we sound very mechanical. We sound like it's not a natural language for us. So we've talked about the vowel sounds last time. This time, we're going to talk about a new way of pronouncing, I would say, consonant sounds. Okay. Now, the third component of accent is liaisons. Now, among these three, when I ventured into customer service, this is actually, I would say, the foreign topic for me. I haven't really heard about liaisons before. I've only known about, a job position, basically, liaison officer, right? But I didn't really know that it applies to language. So liaisons would be word connections. So sometimes you will be surprised as you talk to some foreigners. They sound like they're dropping some of the sounds, right? And they're kind of connecting some of the words together. Mainly, that's really how they are, because you sound smoother when you apply liaison in your language. Okay. Now, for this series, as I've mentioned, we will only be tackling pronunciation. Intonation and liaison would be part of our paid program, which is the Customer Service 101. Okay, so without further ado, let's proceed. I'll go ahead. Hello to my friends who are watching, and also to all the mommies who are watching. I hope that you will learn something from me today. So let's talk about no, not the vowel sounds, it's just the consonant sounds. So it says here that general American speech is composed of about 40 sounds, okay? And 23 of them will be consonants. Now, among the consonants, what you have to first understand is that there are stop and continuant consonant sounds. Now, by definition, a stop consonant sound is something that you can prolong. Now, when you say that you can prolong this, you have to prolong the consonant sound itself, okay? Because sometimes we get fooled and we are thinking that we're prolonging the sound, but in fact, you're prolonging the vowel sound that goes with it. So, for example, in this case, the 6 stop consonants are P, B, T, D, K, and G. So to pronounce it, like for example, this one, you say P. There's no way actually for you to pronounce the letter P longer. If you try to say pa, I'm not really, I'm not prolonging the letter P. I'm actually prolonging the letter A. Okay, and in fact, if you notice, as you produce these sounds, mainly I would say the way you produce that sound is just a sudden release of air, right? So I guess that's the reason why, as a stop consonant sound, you end up not being able to prolong that that consonant sound. I'm sorry if I'm getting I would say confused with saying consonant and vowel sounds, but yes, again, our lesson would be about consonant sounds. So let's proceed. Now, if those are the stop consonant sounds, you also have what we call continuant consonant sounds. So it is the other way, right? So consonant sounds, on the other hand, is a consonant that can be prolonged at will. So like this case, you have your, I hope you can hear that sound. That's the letter F. You have your H. So it's like, it's not a sound that will give you a hard time in terms of prolonging it, right? So you have your L, M, N, R, S, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So you say, for example, that's the F. I hope you can hear it. And then that's the H. L. You have your r, s, v, ooh, okay, x, e, and z. So if you notice, you can prolong and isolate the consonant sound itself. Now, I think this is very important for you to distinguish, particularly if you have a problem, let's say, with the P and the F. One of the main difference of these two letters would be that P is a stop sound while F is a continuant sound, right? So this means that if you are prolonging the sound, then you're most likely producing the letter F rather than the letter P, and so and vice versa. Okay. Now, I do believe it's something that I know some of us have, I would say, opportunity in terms of pronouncing some of these sounds. And we'll discuss them later on, specifically the ones that we're having a hard time with. Okay. So let me know again if you have any questions. I'm really going to be happy to hear from you guys. So at least I can give you an idea, right, how you can improve yourself as well. Okay, so if you notice here, we've also been we're presenting as well the Venn diagram showing the different Filipino and English consonant sounds. So there are similarities and there are also some differences. Particularly, the differences would be the letter D, T, and mostly the P and the B and the F. So we'll discuss that later on, one by one. Okay. So let's talk about what we call, I would say, problematic consonants. And I hope you'll be able to distinguish which one among your, I would say, which one among those consonants are actually applicable to you, right? So I think it takes a lot of awareness on your end if you want to improve the way you speak. Here's a suggestion I can give you. Grab your phone. I'm very sure your phone has a recorder. Okay. Read just any article in English, or maybe a book, a story, a news article, anything in English. Have yourself recorded, listen to yourself, and from there you would know what you need to work on, whether it be a vowel sound or a consonant sound. And just like when you see a doctor, the diagnosis is as important, right? Once you know where you need to work on, then it takes a lot of conscious effort and, of course, practice to address those, I would say, problematic sounds. So whether it be you have a problem with your vowels or your consonants, that's okay. It can be worked on as long as you apply conscious effort. So let's proceed. Okay, let me read this part first. So it says here that a Filipino speaker pronounces V and B usually the same way, right? Like you say it this way, you say, I have trouble with my vowels. Or sometimes you say vowels, right? That's the correct way of saying that. But sometimes even the trouble becomes trouble, right? So I have trouble with my vowels instead of I have trouble with my vowels. I think the most common one would be always pronouncing it with a B sound rather than a V sound, right? Or say Filipino instead of Filipino. Unless sometimes I know we're really reading it as Filipino because the word is spelled out that way. But if you're reading Filipino and you end up saying Filipino, then there's a difference there, and that means that you need to work on something. Now, with this, it says here, you need to differentiate between the four sounds of P, B, F, and V. So the plosives P and B and P pop out. Makes sense if you notice, if you remember. Um, uh, these are actually stop sounds, right? Then the sibilants F and V slide out. So it's a lot smoother. And I think that's where we're having a hard time. Now, B and V are voiced, F and P are unvoiced. Now, later on, you'll understand better what is voiced and unvoiced. Okay, B and V are the least related pair because, well, actually, for some, it's more of related because you usually slip to B instead of saying V, right? So let's proceed with the next part. Anyway, you can read off the last sentence. Okay, let me see. I'll go ahead and go here. So you have the P versus the F, okay? The letter F in the Filipino language, if you remember it correctly, especially if you were, I don't know if there was ever, if they are still studying this in grade school or in high school, but I do remember that when I started out, the alphabet that we know, or at least the alphabet that we started learning, was actually the abacada, right? And in the abacada, there's really no letter F in our native vocabularies. And that's the main reason why we're having a hard time producing the letter F. Of course, in the American alphabet, there is a letter F, but somehow some of us got stuck with the P. right? So every time you see a letter F, you end up not really reading it as a letter F, but you end up reading it as a letter P. Okay? So you need to, I would say, you need to be able to distinguish if you're somehow stuck up with that one. So you can create this the distinction between the letter P and F and F. Now, as I've mentioned, conscious effort is really very important so that once you're able to distinguish, let's say you've recorded your voice, and every time you hear yourself say a word with the letter F, you end up saying letter P instead, then that means that every time you read something and you see the letter F, now you have to be conscious about how you're pronouncing it. So, I believe when you do it all the time, you practice several times, it'll get to a point where you're more comfortable with it, and the letter F will just come out naturally from you. Okay? Okay, so let's proceed. So P versus F. So to make the letter P, and I know this might be a bit too elementary, but sometimes, what's easy is something that we just neglect, right? We consider it negligible to the point that I guess we consider it not as important. But in a customer service professional job, since most of your customers will be foreigners, it's very important that you produce the right sounds. Otherwise, your clients or your customers would end up laughing at you, right? Because you sound very mechanical, you sound like a robot, you might sound, as they say, Asian, right? And we might take it offensive, as an offensive remark. Okay, but the thing is, we have to understand, like what we've said last time, with customer service, it is the customer service provider that has to adjust to the customer, and it's not the other way around. So a lot of CSRs who are starting out, sometimes they get a feedback from their clients or their customers that they do not understand them because they're mispronouncing words. Aside from the fact that they sound very mechanical, they read words syllable by syllable. So let's proceed with learning how to produce the letter P first. So you can see, and oh, and by the way, especially when it comes to, well, it also applies for vowel sounds. If you know that you have a problem with producing some of these sounds, what you can do is have a mirror, like a small mirror, and as you record yourself also, or maybe you can even do a video recording of yourself if you want, okay? You can look at the way your lips move. Of course, you can't see the teeth and the tongue as you produce or you speak, but especially when your mouth are would be closed, right? But somehow you would have an idea if you're placing some of the parts here wrongly. That's why you're pronouncing some of the sounds wrongly as well. Okay. So to make the P sound, says there that first you have to make your two lips touch each other. So just a touch, okay? You don't necessarily have to press on each other. You just have to make it touch. So it will be closed like this, okay? And then you need to blow out some air. So p, p. Now, the thing is, I think this is very important that you understand that the only way to pronounce the letter P is you have to first make your two lips touch each other. I don't know, you can try it out, okay? You can try producing the sound without making your lips touch one another. And I think there's no way you can do it. Okay? So we can practice, and you can practice with me. I don't really know if you're practicing with me. So let's go ahead and read some of the words here, like put, play, pie, peel, pray, right? So it's very easy. Okay, sometimes you can also use, let's say, papaya. So that's you can see and practice, right? You can use a mirror and see if your lips are actually touching one another. Okay, now remember, this is the side note here. It says that your teeth should be apart but not shown, and I don't really know how you can produce the letter P in the first place if you'll show your teeth. I don't know how that'll work if you stick out your teeth outwards. I don't know. Of course, your tongue is also involved in the production of that sound, and it is in the middle of the mouth. You can't stick it out, okay? You don't necessarily have to move your mouth, your tongue, okay, when producing the letter P. Now, also remember that P is a stopped sound, so normally the air is blown through quickly. Okay, now the P and the B are quite related to one another. It says here the only main difference is that the letter P involves air. P, B, P, B. And I think it's more obvious if you try to put your mouth right in front of you, because there'd be a sudden gust of air as you produce the letter P. And you can try it out. P, P. You can feel a sudden gush of air coming out of your mouth compared to B. B, B, P, B. Do you see the difference? So it's more of, in terms of the way you're moving everything, it's almost the same, except that, of course, again, with the letter P, it has air. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you're really learning. Yes, it's a sweater weather from Baguio, Alma. It's also raining here. I was actually worried somehow that what's this? The rain will interfere with the internet connection, and I'm very blessed. I would say that somehow it's not getting in the way. Okay, now, and I think this is a very common tongue twister for you. You can go ahead and practice this. Now, please don't forget, we've also discussed the vowel sounds last Monday. So make sure that you pronounce the correct vowel sounds as you read this tongue twister, okay? This is very simple. It's mostly for the vowel sounds. It's just the short I and the letter E, the short E that is, okay? And you also have a few long E sounds here, okay? So this is a very simple way of practicing the letter P. So let's read it, and you can read it with me. Of course, I can't see you, but I hope that you can do this with me. So we say Peter Piper. Oh, don't worry, by the way, with the way I pronounce, let's say Peter. Okay, well, you'll learn later why I am actually pronouncing it that way. So it's Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Did Peter Piper pick a peck of pickled peppers? If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Now, of course, you can read this faster, but the idea is not about the pace alone. Make sure that you are able to correct the sound first. Now, I would suggest that if you're having a hard time producing the letter P, try to read it first as slowly as you can, perfect it first, then slowly but surely start working on it and reading it faster and faster. So again, your goal is to sound conversational eventually. And you want it to sound effortless on your end. Every time you say some of these sounds, whatever the consonant or the vowel sound that you have to say, you need or you want it to sound effortless, right? Very natural, very conversational. I know I said about that you need to apply conscious effort all the time, but that's really part of it, especially when you're starting out, because you have to also take into consideration that English is just our second language. So I would say that it's normal for a lot of us to have a struggle with the way we speak in English, because at the end of the day, and when you're not working with your client, I believe, okay, I believe you actually talk in Filipino or whatever dialect that you're comfortable with your kids or with your family, right? Now, I know last time there are some moms out there who actually had their kids or their daughters with them as they were listening to the lesson. Now, you can also make it like an adventure, a learning adventure with your kids as you learn these lessons, okay? I believe especially if your kids are planning to go for, let's say, declamation contests or stuff like that, they want to get better exposure, then I think there's nothing wrong if they learn these things, okay? Now, for the letter F this time, let's talk about the letter F. And I think for the letter F, a lot of us are having a hard time. Again, all because, well, you can blame it on the abacada, okay? Because the abacada does not have the letter F. So when the complete alphabet was introduced to us, some of us got stuck up with the letter P. So that's why we normally say it with the letter P, okay? Now I'm trying to dissect this one, but of course, when you really pronounce it, it shouldn't sound too, too rehearsed, okay? So to make this the F sound, it says here that first, you slightly, okay, open your mouth. And see here, there's a big difference just on the step one alone, right? Remember, the letter P requires you to put the two lips and you touch one another, right? In the case of the letter F, you must make sure that it does not touch one another. Similar to the picture that you see on the screen. Okay? So, and then after that, pull your lower jaw and lip back. So a little back and slightly up so that your upper teeth gently touches your lip. Of course, I can't do it while I'm reading, okay? I'm gonna show it later on. Then you touch your bottom lip to your top teeth and then release air from between your teeth and your lower lip. So remember, there is still air involved as you produce the letter F, okay? Make sure that you have air, okay? So all you have to do is first position, okay? Position your this part, okay? So I'm trying to avoid to say the sound, but how do I, something like this, okay? It's hard actually to position my mouth in a way that I'm not yet saying the sound. So I hope you can hear that. I don't know if you can hear it. So it's like how do I describe this? It's like you're releasing air, but you're positioning your lips and your teeth, okay, such a way that you're releasing air. So you see, there's a big difference in the way you pronounce the F and the letter P. So again, P is P. P. Do you see the difference in the way my mouth actually moves? My lips are positioned. And you can, I don't know if you can see it from my camera, but you can see that you should see a little bit of my teeth, right? So you say fan. Now, if you want to make it confusing for your articulators, you can say pan, fan, pan, fan. So you can actually alternate them, okay? So let's read some words with the letter F. We say fan, fail, foot, feel, pheasant. Now there are words actually that has the letter P sound with this same words. So you can try it and challenge yourself and make it like a tongue twister. So you can go pan, fan, pale, fail, put, foot, peel, feel, peasant, pheasant. Now, grab your recorder. I believe that can really be a very helpful tool. Grab your recorder using your phone, of course, and then listen to it several times so you would be able to identify if you have a problem with the P or the F. Usually it's the letter F. Okay, on a side note, it says here, do not start this sound with your mouth closed. Remember again, you cannot make your lips touch one another. Otherwise, you're going to end up producing the letter P. Sometimes it's an unconscious slip, right? So I would say that if upon hearing your recording, you see that you have, or you hear that you have a problem with producing the letter F, then look at the way you're producing the sounds. Okay, if your lips again are touching one another, then you're most likely going to produce the letter P instead of the letter F. Okay, now also do not put your upper teeth over the front of your lower lip, and I don't know why you're even going to do that. Okay, make sure, remember, this position is more relaxed than this. And I think I can't even do that one, putting my upper teeth over the front lip. I don't know how to do it. If you can do it, go ahead. You can send a picture and post it in the comments. Okay. I'm not gonna give myself a hard time with that one by learning how to produce the wrong sound. Okay. So if you have a problem with the PNF, this is a way to do it. Grab your recorder and your mirror and see how you're opening your mouth. Remember, I think that's the first step. If your lips are touching one another, you're going to end up producing the letter P. There's no way for you to produce the letter F. Okay? Also, remember that the letter P is a stop sound. F is a continuant sound. Okay? So, let's try this. We have a tongue twister with the letter F. So you say fresh fried fish, fish fresh fried. Fried fish fresh, fish fried fresh. Okay? So you can go ahead and try reading this slower, whatever suits you. Now just make sure again that you also pronounce the correct vowel sound as you read these words. So you can start slow first, then slightly challenging yourself, reading it faster and faster. Again, the end goal is for you to sound more natural, okay, and effortless. Okay, now let's proceed. It's another tongue twister. Now this time, this is an alternating sound between the letter P and the letter F. So let's try it. And you say, I'm not a pheasant I'm not a pheasant plucker. I'm the pheasant plucker's son. And I'm only plucking pheasants until the pheasant pluckers come. So if you notice, even I have been involved in customer service back then, but since I also have a corporate job, and in my job, I'm not really required to speak in English, right? It is still possible for you to have some slips from time to time, and you find yourself, adjusting also from time to time. Okay, but the good thing, I remember one of our clients and colleague also before was actually amazed by how we Filipinos adjust accordingly. The way she describes it is like we have an imaginary on and off switch. And I know those people who are working in the BPO industry can relate to this. She is just amazed by the fact that every time you step on the door frame, okay, you suddenly have that special skill of speaking in English, right? But then as soon as you get out of the premises, you're going back to your natural you, which is the one who's speaking in Filipino or whatever language you're comfortable with. Okay, now that is our goal. Our goal is that every time you need to speak in English because of your job, is that you are ready any time of the day. Okay, so now this is a very interesting topic on the American tea. Okay, so remember I said earlier, don't mind me when I say Peter. Okay, you'll learn this time why do I say Peter that way and not Peter. Okay, so for those of you out there whose name is Peter, moving forward, if you want to sound smoother, you can say it as Peter. Okay, so the American tea is influenced very strongly, it says here, by intonation and its position in a word or a phrase. So I know it can be a little tricky, and in fact, when I started learning about this, there was a time where I would really listen, and I say listen, okay, not just watch. I would really listen to some movies and talk shows, and observe the way they speak. I mean, these are American movies, okay? So I would really listen to the way they speak, and I was actually started by because they're proving that these rules are correct, okay? So let's talk about the 4 rules. There are 4 rules in terms of how you're supposed to pronounce the letter T. And I know you will have to adjust a little bit on this one, but I'm very sure that if you start acquiring and applying it with the way you speak, you will improve better, okay? The first one is the way you pronounce it is as a letter T, just like how we knew it, T, okay? And the next one would be a T as a letter D, or this is a soft D, okay? And then you have T is silent and T is held. Okay, so I remember when we were going through this training, I was thinking, is it really true that there are 4 ways to pronounce the letter T alone? But yes, it is true. Okay, so let's talk about the first rule. The first rule is when T is the letter T, as we know, T. Okay, so it says here that if T is at the beginning of the word or at the top of the staircase, it is a clear and strong T sound. So for example, okay, we say table, take, tomorrow, teach, 10. And then this phrase, we say turn Thomas, turn. And then you say Thomas tried 2 times. Thomas tried 2 times. Yes, it's not usually pronounced as Thomas, it's Thomas. Okay. Now, another time where you would have to read the letter T as T is with the stressed T. Sometimes it's also involved in ST, TS, TR, CT, LT, and even NT combinations. Now, the NT is a bit tricky because sometimes when you have the NT is pronounced as a held T, okay? But in this case, for example, this one, you say they control, right? The NT combination there, they control the contents. I think it's more of, because when you pronounce this one, the syllable troll, right, and tense start with the letter T. So it's like technically having a word that starts with the letter T, although it's a syllable. Okay, so you have a lot more, like the past tense also of some words will have to be pronounced with the letter T instead of the letter D. I know it's spelled with the letter letter D, or you add an ED at the end, but the way you're pronouncing it should be with the letter T sound, okay? And it's after an unvoiced consonant sound. So that's a bit tricky. You have to check what's preceding it, okay? Now, and that's the F, K, P, S, C, H, S, H, and T, H, but not the letter T, okay? Like, for example, if the verb ends with the letter T and you form the past tense, of course, that will form another syllable most of the time. So that means you cannot pronounce it with a T sound, okay? So let's try it. So for example, instead of saying picked, you say picked, okay? Hoped, raced, watched, washed. And in the sentence, we say, it took Tim, it took Tim 10 times to try the telephone. Again, it took Tim 10 times to try the telephone. Now, I know I may be exaggerating the way I'm saying the letter T. Of course, I want to make sure that you can hear and distinguish the difference, okay? Now, let's proceed. Thank you for giving me a feedback that you can hear it. I know I cannot read all of your comments, but hopefully I get to read them later on, maybe after, okay? If you have particular questions, please feel free to post it so I can answer this later on. Now, the second way of pronouncing the letter T is when it is in the middle of the staircase, or basically in the middle of a word, okay? So if the T is in the middle of a word, your intonation will change and change it to a soft D sound instead. So instead of saying letter, a hard T, letter, right? You say it with a soft D and you say letter. And that's the reason why I was reading it as Peter and not Peter, okay? And when you say it this way, it sounds a lot smoother. It sounds more, I would say, smoother. It sounds more natural. It sounds more like you're not faking the accent, right? So instead of saying water, you say water, daughter. And then sometimes here, you also apply liaison. Liaison is connecting the words together, right? So instead of saying bought a, you say boughta, cotta, lotta, gotta. So you said, and then we go back to one word, you say later, meeting, better, oughta, okay? Now, I know it's kind of weird, but still, it's something that you can learn from. And I think at the first part, when you start hearing your recording, you will sound weird, I would say, because it's not something you have trained your ears to sound. It's not something your ears are trained to hear, right? So, but I think when you do it all the time, you get used to how you will sound, and definitely you will sound better. And I think if you know that you sound better, you'll continue doing what you're doing. Okay. Now, don't forget as well our lessons yesterday on the schwa. So like for the first phrase that you have here, instead of saying, what a good idea, remember the way I pronounce it, it's word per word, syllable by syllable. I'm still technically pronouncing it the right way, but when I say it that way, it still sounds a bit mechanical, okay? So when you pronounce this word, when you read this phrase instead, try to make it softer on the T sound and make it a soft T sound. So you say, what a good idea, okay? What a good idea. Now you can practice that. And then the next one. I know it sounds weird the way we are putting the way we are supposed to pronounce it, but believe me, you'll sound better when you say it that way. So you say, instead of saying put it in a bottle, you say put it in a bottle. I know it's kind of weird, but that's good. Okay. Next, instead of saying get a better water heater, you say get a better water heater. Okay, next. Instead of saying put all the data in the computer, you say put all the data in the computer. And then instead of saying Patty ought to write a better letter, you say Patty ought to write a better letter. You can even liaise the write and you say write okay? Okay. Do you have any questions? Do you find it amazing? I hope you can practice it on your own, okay? Now, next one. And I think this one, you're hearing it all the time with people who are working in the call center, okay? So I know some of you are kind of surprised with the way some of your friends are saying center in center, right? All of a sudden, you know that they've undergone some training in the BPO industry if they say center as center, right? So yes, it's one of the lessons that we have. So the third way of pronouncing the letter T is when it is silent, okay? So this applies when the T and the N, the letters T and the letter N, are so close to one another. So instead of saying interview, you say interview. International becomes international. Believe me, you can watch the Miss International pageant and you can hear them say international, okay? Then you have advantage, advantage, personage, personage. Now, I think part of the reason also why you have the silent T here is that for the word advantage and personage, they have a schwa in the end. The last vowel sound is a schwa. Remember, a schwa is a not so significant but still existing vowel sound, right? Okay, next. If the T is also at the end of a word, sometimes you don't hear it anymore. So you say put, what, lot, sit, hot, sit, shop, brought, Kit Kat. Okay, that's quite right, isn't it? So sometimes it sounds weird when you say it, of course, but when you practice and you get used to it, you will sound more natural, believe me, okay? Okay, let's see. Let's proceed with the last one. And this was the, I would say, the mind-boggling rule for me. I had to prove it myself and watch several movies to see if they really say it this way. Because for me, the way they say the T sound here is weird, okay? So the T is held, okay? And we call this rule the bottom of the staircase. So for those words with the T-A-I-N, T-T-E-N, and some other T-N combination, the T is held. So it says here that the held T is, strictly speaking, not really a T at all. Okay, we have to also remember, and you can try to compare how your teeth, your tongue, your lips are positioned when you pronounce the letter T and the letter N. They're almost close to one another, the way you pronounce it. Okay, so if you have the N immediately after the letter T, you don't pop the T sound and make it a hard T sound, okay? Because the tongue is already in the T position. But you simply release the air for the N and not the T. Now, along the way, you should make sure you don't put a schwa before the N, okay? Now, I think instead of explaining it, the best way to really learn this is if I give you an example. So, for example, the first word that you have here, you don't say written, okay? You say written, written. certain, forgotten, sentence. Now, I'm very sure it will sound weird for you, okay? Because that's how I felt the first time I had to hear myself say it, okay? But I remember I am not really a celebrity person, okay? Or I'm not a showbiz fan, something. But I remember in one of the shows before where I heard Ann Curtis say cotton. She actually said cotton, okay? So cotton. Okay. So how do you pronounce the sentence this time? So you say he's forgotten the carton of satin mittens. Sometimes it reminds you of being German. I don't know whoever invented this rule, okay? But maybe that person has German decent, okay? Next, okay, she's certain that he has written it. Next, Martin has gotten a kitten. Okay, now I know it sounds weird, but believe me, you'll sound better. Now, of course, I was asked by some trainees how come it's pronounced that way? Are there really strict rules? Well, how do I know if I'm not supposed to apply a certain rule? Okay. Now, I believe that at the end of the day, it's all about how you really sound and how you're comfortable with the way you sound matters, right? That's why I was telling you if you can go ahead and grab your recorder and listen to yourself and judge among, you can have different versions of the way you're reading certain words, for example. And if you feel like you're more comfortable with the way you're pronouncing this way versus this way, then that's okay. Okay, because like, I'll cite an example, and I think I've been using this example several times. I live in Tagalog, Muntinlupa. Okay. Now, in our rule, it says there that if the N and the T and the N are close to one another, right, you can use the held T. Okay. But in this case, I felt like, so do I say Munilupa? Because it's not the held T, it's the silent T, right? Because the N and the T are close to one another, you can drop it out and say, supposedly, I would say it as I live in Munilupa. But then when I heard myself, I felt like it sounds really weird. So I'd rather say I live in Muntinlupa. So it will still have the T sound. I guess after all, it is a proper noun, right? So it's okay to have a strong T sound with that one. Okay, so I hope you'd have fun applying the 4 rules of the letter T. I think this is one of the, I would say, the funnest part of the consonant sounds training, because you will look at the letter T in a different light moving forward. Okay, and it's fun. It's fun. Okay, now another problematic consonant that we have is probably the voiced TH and the unvoiced TH. So yes, there are 2 TH sounds. There's a voiced TH sound and an unvoiced TH. Okay, the voiced TH, if mispronounced, usually would sound like a letter D. So instead of the, you say the, right? The. Okay, now, and then the unvoiced TH, sometimes when mispronounced, can either sound like the letter S or sometimes the letter T. Okay, so let's see how it's produced, okay? Now let's proceed to the next slide so it's easier for you to understand. Although you can read the notes here, it says here that for the voice TH, instead of being in the back of the teeth, it's 1/4 lower. It's kind of easier actually if you have examples. Okay, it's 1/4 inch lower and forward between the teeth. You have to really be conscious in terms of how you're placing I used to call it articulators, right? Every part of this part of your face, okay? Your lips, your tongue, the placement of your tongue, the position of your teeth, all of these things actually influence the way you sound. So if you position, let's say, your teeth wrongly, you'll most likely produce a different sound, okay? Same thing with the unvoiced TH, okay? For these 2 sounds, the placement of or the your teeth are actually involved. More importantly would be your tongue. Okay. So let's see. Let's proceed. So let's move forward. Again, it is probably the most common word, the word the, right? So after the schwa, the th sound would be the sound you would hear most often because you have a lot of th words. Just like the this, that, these, those, they, them, their, and then. Okay. Now, again, when you read these words, make sure that you're conscious with the way you're positioning every part of your articulators. Okay. Let's see. So with this one, this is actually remember this part? It is a voiced TH, right? All these words, sorry, I know you can't see the way where I'm pointing my finger, but the words that you have here are featuring the voiced TH sound. Now, the voiced TH sound, when you produce these words or the sounds for these words, you will feel a tender vibration, okay? And you can be more, I don't know, there's a way for you to isolate your brain and make yourself be conscious with the way you're opening your mouth. So there's a tender vibration as you produce that sound. Okay, now please don't forget that as you produce the th sound, make sure that you also produce the correct vowel sound. Okay, because you might end up perfecting the consonant sound, but if you also have the wrong vowel sound, it will still sound weird. Okay. Now another, I think this one is I would say one of my pet peeves, particularly the word three. So when my kid was, I think about 4 or 5 years old, and he would start counting, and he would say 1, 2, 3, right? Because the word two is with a T sound, so it's very easy to just have a slip with the next number. So instead of saying three, you end up saying tree, right? Now I think a lot of us have a common, I would say, opportunity here. So just by simply counting, you can diagnose if you have a problem with producing the unvoiced TH. Okay, so you have three, thunder, thistle, thieves, threatening. Sometimes it's even say threatening because remember the held T sound, right? Thrifty, thousand, 30. So for 30, the T there is a soft T because it's in the middle, right? So 30, through, thrive. Now I hope that as you're listening to me, you're also, I don't know how big my my video is, but I hope you can observe also the way I'm opening my mouth because that will be the basis of how you're pronouncing the words. Again, use a mirror if you have to so you can see the way you're opening your mouth. For example, there's a big difference when I say tree versus three. Tree, three. So I don't know if you can see it, but I hope you can. The tongue is involved in producing the TH sound, right? So three. Of course, I'm not sticking out my tongue, okay? Now, so to pronounce the TH correctly, you can also think of yourself like using a snake's tongue, but it can't be too far out, okay? And some comedians do this. They stick their tongue out too much, but that's not our goal. Like, no, it's not like that, okay? So that's not, it doesn't really look nice. And I think you will not sound nice as well if you do it that way. So yes, the tongue is involved in producing the TH sound, but you can't make it stick out too much like the, okay? So it will just have to, I would say it has to be the tip of the tongue, okay? So it says that it should dart out between your teeth and snap back very quickly. So it's not like you're sticking out your tongue too much, okay? So let's try some practice sentences. So you have here, Thor is a god of thunder. Thunder, okay? Now I think to make it easier, with the voiced and non-voiced th, always remember that your tongue is involved in producing the sound, Okay, so for the for the voiced th sound, the, right? It's like you're saying the letter D, but you involve your tongue. This is a more layman's way of explaining it. Okay, it's like you're producing the letter D, but before you finally produce it, make sure that you move your tongue along and make it touch the the lower section of your upper teeth, something like that. Okay, the, and you can feel a little bit. I know I'm exaggerating the sound, but you can feel that there's a bit of vibration. That you can feel with your tongue, okay? So the. Now TH, on the other hand, it's just like producing the T sound, but again with the involvement of the tongue, and you say the versus t, the, the. Now I hope you can see. I don't know if you can see it. I know the video would only feature a very small image of me. So, but I hope you can see the difference between how I open my mouth. Sorry, it's hot. Okay. I hope you can see the difference in the way I open my mouth as I produce the TH sound versus the letter T. So let's proceed with the second sentence. So we say Thelma, and sometimes it's also produced as Thelma, but it's in this case because we're featuring the letter T, the TH sound, then we say it as Thelma and Theo have bad breath. Next, three free thrilling frills fought on Ruth's roof. Next, thieves are thankless thugs who deserve our wrath. You can read it with me, okay? Make sure, I think the best way really is to practice. Next, where are we? Number 5, right? So we say nothing is worth 1,000 of deaths. So make sure your tongue is moving. If it's not moving, if it's frozen, you are most likely not going to produce the voiced or unvoiced TH. Next one, number 6. We say Mr. Smith's teeth are thin and lethal. Okay. Next, Thursdays are thirsty days for lethargic Ruth and Thelma. Number 7, it seems. So this one, because sometimes the TH sound can come across as the letter S instead, okay? It's like you're attempting to produce the S sound, the S sound. So there's a possibility that instead of the letter T, it can come across as the letter S. So it can, some tongue twisters would feature alternating TH, unvoiced TH, and S sound. So for number 8, that's the case. So you say, it seems themes are sought by thousands of mythical misses. Okay, now again, don't forget to apply the right vowel sound as you read these words, okay, or these sentences. Next, thick ticks on 3 trees brought to 10 thin men. So it's kind of tricky, right? Because it's alternating, they have alternating T and TH sound, and also you have a challenge here with the vowel sound, particularly the short I and the short E sound. So again, that's thick ticks on 3 trees brought broth to 10 thin men. Okay, so sometimes the safest way to do it, since I'm not really reading tongue twisters every day at home, okay, is to read it slowly and then repeatedly. And as you probably repeat it, you can try to challenge yourself a little bit and try to read it faster and faster as you go. Okay, next. You have 6 thickets thwarted 7 thin sinners from passing through. Okay, I hope you can really see the way I'm opening my mouth, especially when I'm producing the TH sound. Again, your tongue is highly involved in producing this sound. So if your tongue is frozen, you will end up producing the wrong sound. Okay? So, by the way, let me just discuss something about the Customer Service 101 program that we have. In a Customer Service 101 program, we actually have quizzes, and I require trainees to submit their recordings. I listen to them. Before, when we do face-to-face, I also observe the way, the physical way of speaking, meaning I actually watch the way they open their mouth. But in this case, since we're limited to a virtual activity, right? I usually ask for them to submit some recordings to me. There are specific um, paragraphs and pieces that I ask them to read to test on how they're applying the lessons. Of course, the idea is that they will eventually sound a lot better as they read these phrases and paragraphs, okay? So that's something that you can expect from me as well. If you should you enroll in the customer service 101 class, I'll be listening to your recordings and I'll be specific as to what are your common areas of opportunity, so that moving forward you will be more conscious about producing certain sounds. Although these are problematic sounds, I wouldn't say that it is applicable to everyone. Some are already able to produce the TH sound perfectly, but there are really some who are still stuck up with either the T or the letter D or the letter S. Okay? Okay. Let me just check the time. Okay. I want to make sure, I know I'm past the 7 o'clock mark, but I'm going to go ahead and read this, and you can read this with me. So I hope you get to practice also the TH sound. So we say, there was, and of course, by the way, when you read this, I hope that you give it justice and you sound like you're just sharing a story, okay? And remember also, part of reading and intonation is that when you see commas or periods, you have to somehow pause, okay? Don't avoid sounding like you're reading it too fast, because if you're reading it too fast, we're very prone actually to sound robotic as well. Okay? Okay, so let's try this one. So we say, there was a time when people really had a way with words. They said and did whatever they could so that each little thing would then be made good and clear, both at home and all over the world. They knew that it was very important to use a few short words because most of the long ones were too hard for them. The only other thing about words is the number of school children who are called names even if they know how to say something right, but can't find a way to use it in a sentence. By the way, many more families have been after their children to like school. Well, how about you? So you can try to practice this as well. Maybe have a screenshot or something and read it. Now, just make sure that, remember, especially like just last Monday, I gave you the story about the ant and the grasshopper. Um, Especially for that one, okay? Make sure that as you read it, you're really like a storyteller. So you have to give justice to what you're reading, okay? Okay. Okay, in Filipino, another problematic sound that we have is the S and the Z, right? I think it's common for us to sometimes not pronounce the letter Z with a Z, right? But instead pronouncing the letter S. The same thing, because in the abacada, the Filipino alphabet, we don't really have the Z sound. We have S, right? So it says here that in Filipino, an S always sounds like an S, right? Sa, se, si, so, su. Okay? In English, a final S usually sounds like the letter Z, okay? When it follows and you have to take note of this, when it follows a voiced consonant or a vowel, so like raise, runs, okay? Now, the most common verbs in English usually ends also with a Z sound, like is, was, does, has, okay? Now, I think one of the main, I think you don't have a problem with producing the Z sound. It's just that we were trained to read words exactly based on the letters, right? So mean letters that's part of that word. So for example, when you say I, the I sound plus the S sound is, right? So, but in this case, if you want to sound more of a standard or a neutral accent, you have to pronounce it with a Z sound instead. So I know you read it with an S, but you say it with a Z. So is, was, does, has. These are rules. Okay. Now, how about the American L? Now, I think the American L is more of a problem with other Asian countries, although I think it's also possible for us to have a problem with the letter L. Okay. It says here that in the beginning or the middle of a word, the tongue tip touches just behind the teeth on those hard ridges. Okay, in this position, the L shouldn't give you much trouble. I think you're not really gonna have a hard time too much on producing the letter L because we have it in the abacada. Okay, usually those who are having a problem with this one are those like Koreans and Japanese and I think even Chinese because they don't really have the letter L in their vocabulary. So I guess for those who are K-pop fans, maybe it's possible for you to have a problem with the letter L. I don't know. Okay. Now the difficulty begins when the letter L is at the end of a word because the letter L is usually shorter and has a sharper pronunciation. So sometimes you make the word sound too short, like pull, right? So you have to make sure that you can still hear the L sound at the end. Okay. Now, at the end of the word, the letter L is especially noticeable. If it is either missing or too short, you can probably add a little bit of schwa. Remember the at the end? Kala, kala, okay? Kala, okay? Or a little bit, prolong it a little bit. Kal, okay? Just so it's more obvious. So you need to put a little schwa just before the final L. And if you, for example, for the word ball, you can so this is contrary to what we have been studying for the last time because most of the rules, the words actually sound I would say faster. In this case, you're kind of prolonging the sound. So in this case, instead of saying ball, you say ball. It's a little bit shorter, no, longer, right? Because there's an additional schwa before the letter L. And you can even make it, I would say, exaggerated by adding another schwa at the end. So you say bala. So it's like, how many syllables would that be? 3, but very quick. Because remember, a schwa is a very quick right? So bala. Okay. Now, one way to avoid pronunciation difficulty of a final L, such as in call, okay, is to make a liaison when the next word begins with a vowel. So, for example, instead of saying call on, you say colon, colon, right? So, liaison is all about connecting the words together. So, you don't have to really read words word per word. So, instead of saying I have to call on my friend, you say I have to call on my friend. So you're connecting call and on. Since call ends with the letter L, instead of adding another schwa in between the at the end and have the on, you combine the two together and say colon. Okay. So I have to call on my friend. Now, I won't be discussing everything here, but this is something you can review on your own. You can even have it reviewed. I got this from Wikipedia. This is what you call the IPA chart or the International Phonetic Alphabet. And this is a way for us to, let's say when you're checking a dictionary, remember there's a pronunciation guide there and they use different symbols. You can use the IPA chart as a guide to give you an idea how to pronounce certain words. Although I think nowadays, what's good about Googling something is that aside from the spelled out pronunciation, some dictionaries or online dictionaries will now have an MP4, a voice recording of the actual pronunciation, which kind of helps us even more, right? When I was starting out, was Google that? Well, there's already Google by then, but it's not as highly used, I think, that time compared to now. Almost everyone is Googling everything, right? So every time you need to learn a new word, all you have to do is look for it in the internet, right? Okay, so here's my last message, I guess, with when it comes to learning the vowel sounds and the consonant sounds. I would always say CE, conscious effort. Make sure that you apply conscious effort every time you have to speak in English, every time that you have to, let's say, read a piece of writing in English. And of course, you have to give justice to what you're reading. I know that there are some customer service provider positions where you're given, let's say, some scripts or guides, and you just need to read whatever is there, right? But you have to also remember that you have to sound natural, you have to sound conversation, and the only way to do that is somehow if you practice reading these lines, these scripts, because the thing is sometimes, yes, it sounds good, but when you listen to yourself, you sound like a machine. So we don't really like to sound like it's too rehearsed, too scripted, so to speak, because your customers also will feel like you're not concerned about them when you sound that way. So remember, when, let's say, specifically for those who are going to go for a voiced account, because in customer service, some of you will end up with a non-voice account, right, when you work from home. But for those of you who will be working from home for a voice account, meaning you'll have to make use of your voice, you have to really talk to someone over the phone. Of course, it's not literally the phone itself, okay? You're going to be using several tools for you to be able to receive the calls. It really takes a lot of conscious effort to sound natural. Remember, I think you also have to consider that your customers actually called into customer service um, so that they can talk to an actual person. So make sure that you sound like an actual person and you don't sound like you are just the voicemail, right? Or a recording, okay? Now, I do believe that if you're not used to speaking this way when you speak to customers, or you're not really that confident or comfortable speaking in English, I believe it just takes a lot of, I would say, will and practice, and again, conscious effort. I think if you do it all the time and you practice, 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 you will surely sound a lot better. And that's our goal here. That's why we're giving you a sneak preview of some of the parts that we discussed in Customer Service 101. After all, FH Mom is all about helping out each other, right? So I hope that for the moms out there, you also feel like, how do I say it? You feel a lot more confident too as you apply these lessons. This is part of the lessons in Customer Service 101 that's really fun because you get to experiment on a lot of things. I know some trainees would say that their family and friends are laughing at them when they're practicing, but that's really how it is. If you're serious about landing a customer service job with an American or a British client, I think it's high time that you also start learning how to speak their way. Okay, because again, part of customer service principles is that you have to do the adjusting and not them. Okay. So with that, I'm gonna open the floor with Q&A sessions. Maybe you have any questions? Do you have any questions? And you know what? I have a few trainees before, not just before, but also the ones for the current batch. Some of them do have BPO experience. The thing is, I think maybe they've shifted, I don't know, or they've been working at a different industry for some time now. So I think since, again, as I've mentioned, since English is really our first language, there's a very big tendency for us to forget the lessons that we had back then as trainees. So if you've kind of rested from speaking with American customers, for example, you get back to your default Filipino English accent, right? So I would say that it's always best to go back and review the lessons. So I appreciate your comments about this would be serving as a review for you. Yes, because I think that that's normal, especially if you've been taking in calls for a long time. Since you've been doing or applying the lessons already, there's a very big tendency for us to forget the technicalities of the lessons that we've had before, right? So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and open the floor. I hope that you have learned a lot for tonight. If you did, I hope you can give me a thumbs up or whatever reaction that you can give me, so I know that you'd have you've learned something from this. Now, this lesson is something that also supplements what we have discussed last Monday. So if you missed out last Monday's webinar, make sure that you get back to it. I know it's one of the recorded sessions. So, and don't forget to also check on the webinars of Mommy Haiti last week. Because as per our discussion, we divided the subjects or the topics. She covered the grammar part, and I'm covering the pronunciation part. So I think all these come together. Of course, even if you have the right pronunciation, the right accent, for example, but you don't know what to say because you don't know the grammar and you have poor vocabulary, then it kind of defeats the purpose, right? So you have to make sure that all the ingredients are there, and then you just put them all together. And the goal is for you to sound better, be more confident about yourself, and hopefully for those moms out there who are still seeking for a work from home for the first time, let's say, I hope that you'd be more confident on um, applying for a certain post, because I'm very sure as you look for work from home opportunities, some of you are, I would say, skeptical, right, on trying out because you feel like, I remember one of the trainees before said that one of her problems or struggle is that every time she needs to speak to a foreigner, she feels that the only set of words that she can say would be a yes or a no. So I don't know if you are like that, or you could always say, I know it sounds like a joke when people say that when you talk to foreigners, it's always nosebleed. But I think we Filipinos are really amazing. I do believe that somehow we can always adjust easily with our clients, and you don't have to be too strict about it. If you feel like you still have an opportunity to improve yourself, then just accept it as it is. Remember again that Filipino isn't our first language. You can still learn, okay, as long as you're really willing to learn. So I'm gonna open the floor. You can go ahead, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. You can go ahead and ask me questions if you have any. Okay, I'm gonna wait for some questions, and hopefully you do have some. I can't see questions. I'm only seeing thank you, thank you. Oh, it's a very big opportunity also for me to share whatever I have learned over the years. That's the main reason why I actually signed up for the training team of FH Moms. I think that's one thing I've learned being a trainer for several years now. I've realized that whatever we learn is not meant for our own personal consumption, but it's meant to be shared. So I hope that I'm able to share something for you. And if you learn something from me, if you somehow have improved your skill because of this training, I hope that you also get to share this with someone, maybe your kids, your husband, because I know in FH Moms we don't accept husbands, right? So you can share it with your family and friends also. Who knows? Some of them might really be meant to work from home with a foreign client, okay? So I believe there are no questions, comments, suggestions, feedback. Do you already know what are your common areas of opportunity? What are your common problematic consonants? I hope you know, okay? That's the first step for correcting yourself, knowing where you need to work on. Okay, and my oily face is now more obvious. It's funny how it's raining, but it's still hot, right? I know a lot of you can relate to that. Okay, so I guess we're done. Are we? Will? Jean, are we done? I think we are done since there are no questions. It has been a great almost an hour and a half. I know I'm supposed to only take 1 hour of your time. Feel free to comment down below if you have some questions that you might have not thought of at this moment. And hopefully I'll get back to you, and I'll browse through some of the comments in the channels that we have. And that's it for tonight, I guess. I hope you learned a lot and have a great day. Have a great, I would say, way to exercise and practice. Apply the lessons that you've learned from Monday and also today. On Friday, we will learn more. Okay. It's more on exercises. Okay. I have a problem with your F sound. Oh, that's good if you already know your particular, I would say, problematic sound. Okay. Whether it be vowel or consonant sounds. Because remember again, once you know where you need to work on, you will then go for how's the correct way of pronouncing this word. So if you put extra effort or conscious effort, you can even have a video recording of yourself and see how you're opening your mouth to produce, let's say in this case, if your problem, Mommy Lou, is your letter F, right? There's a big difference with the way you open your mouth as you produce the letter P versus the letter F. So chances are the reason why you're mispronouncing is because you're misplacing some of these, okay, whatever is here. So check out, I would really suggest the best way to correct that is get yourself a mirror as you practice reading some tongue twisters or any piece of writing in English, okay? So there you go. I hope that you learned a lot tonight. And if you have any other questions, feel free to post it. And hopefully I get to answer them and see it right on time. On Friday, we will have more of exercises. And I will also be including a lesson that we have in module number 2. This would be focusing on the different pronunciation in that applies in the UK or British language. Because what we're trying to learn at the moment for the accent training is more on the standard American English or the broadcast network standard. That's the neutral accent. But of course, if your client would be an Australian or a British person, for example, there are also differences with the way they speak. And I would say for me, like personally, I find it a big challenge listening to a British person because they sound really very different. But that's the reason why when you get involved in and when you have a foreign client, you really have to study their language, not just the letters or the words, but also the way they speak. Because at the end of the day, your goal is good communication skills, right? You need to make sure that you have, you're able to understand and they're able to understand you too. Now, sometimes we learn how to speak very well, but we don't train our ears. So you train not just this part, but you also train your ears. So that's why I'm always telling my trainees, it's best if you can watch a movie, but watch a movie with your ears and not just your eyes, okay? There you go. I guess that's it for today. So I'll be giving you some exercises, vocal exercises, and we call them tipping point exercises that you can use every time that you need to face a foreign client, and somehow, you know, you have to, I would say, prepare your articulators. And at the same time, again, we'll feature some of the common differences, different pronunciation, or different words as well that we have in the British versus the American English, okay? So with that said, I hope you learned a lot today. And that's it for tonight. Have a good day, have a good evening, and God bless you all. Bye!
Hi, my name is MK. I'm the founder of Filipino Home-Based Moms or FH Moms. What we do is we help Filipino mothers inside and outside the Philippines to get an online job, and now we are expanding to helping more Filipino mothers without access to the internet by giving them home-based livelihood opportunities.
Before kasi kami na nag-home-based job, parang living paycheck to paycheck kami. Sahod niya, oy, hati na agad yan yung matitira. Or nung nag-home-based na kami, doon nakapag-ipon na kami. Nakapag-church wedding kami. Tapos nagkaroon na kami ng savings. Nagkaroon na rin kami ng investments, tsaka insurance. Nakapag-bili na rin kami ng house.
Dito kasi sa pag nagtrabaho kami sa bahay, mas maraming time na nga, sa kids, sa kanya. Kaya, ayun. Hanggang ngayon, masaya pa rin naman ako sa pag-online yun.
Since sobrang hirap, importante ko na talaga yung talim ng job, na-experience ko na rin yung discrimination sa work. Until October 2018, I was invited to be an inspirational speaker and you were one of them. So yun, na-meet kita. And then doon ako natigil, Maki. Doon na talaga yung, doon na ako pinasok talaga yung mundo ng pag-work. You gave me hope. I remember yung experience ko sa isang company na discriminate ko. I got projects, I got freelance job, naging ambassador sa isang company. So those are some things na natutunan ko sa office.
So, nag-join ako ng FH Moms last 2017 and that was the first year na nag-transition ako from corporate to working from home. So, nakita ko to sa Facebook as a mommy community for, like freelancers. So, that's why I joined. For me, FH Moms is really like a blessing. The group or this community made me realize my calling as a teacher. It's an honor to be part of this group, to impart what I know, and help other mothers out there as part of the goal of FH Moms. So, go for it.
In my job, there are many tasks. There are so many things that needs to be done in front of the computer. There's a lot of forms, paperwork, and also a lot of research. At the same time, being an event planner, I'm always on the go. And as a new company, it's also challenging whether should I hire an employee, like a regular employee, or should I just get somebody that's on call. Now, this is where FH Moms came in, like God said. So when I hired one of the wonderful FH Mom members with the name of Katie, I was able to communicate to her what I envisioned my business to be, and she helped me to create a very positive branding of my business. So I would say having FH Moms as a support system for my business has been the best decision that I have ever made.